welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi. Before we get into talk a little hockey, a little bit NHL, we should probably announce right at the start of this one that we are now on YouTube. We got a YouTube channel set up. A link will be in the description of all of our episodes here. But yeah, you can go listen to us over there. We do not have a visual element on YouTube yet. It'll still be just the audio like this, but we're working on it in the future so that we can hopefully, you can see our beautiful faces attached to our bad predictions of the Washington Capitals.
Yep. Couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah, I kind of teed you up there and then proceed to crush it on my own.
No, not a problem.
But
you're doing all the heavy lifting. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and we got a couple things to talk about. Not really any big news, but do you have any of these particular you want to start with?
Again, yeah, really not much going on in the league right now. Every team's kind of, just doing their own thing at the moment. Might as well start off with kind of the biggest news for this episode, that being the Cam Fowler trade. Anaheim finally moving Cam Fowler out of Anaheim after many, many years. What was he, 9 games short of 1,000 games played, all with the Ducks. Very similar to Corey Perry, who was bought out when he was at 988. So two guys who, their careers are kind of going to be known for playing with the Ducks, but never got to get that 1,000th game played with them. But the trade was Cam Fowler, along with a 2027 fourth-round pick, going to the St. Louis Blues in exchange for a 2027 second-round pick. And they say prospect. He's not a prospect, really. But defenseman Jeremy Biakabatuka, I think is how you pronounce it.
Wow. I thought you went back and tried to repronounce it. That's all one go. Oh, yeah. No.
I couldn't do better. They say prospect defenseman. He's he's putting up subpar numbers in the ECHL, so I think it was really just a roster, just a player under contract to have to go the other way.
Oh, okay. So you think he's probably not going to be anything more than them calling a 25-year-old a prospect or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The Ducks retained $2.5 million of Cam Fowler's salary, so St. Louis is getting him at $4 million for the remaining of this year and next year. It's, I mean, to me, it's I think a lose-lose trade. We've talked about other trades before where it's kind of like, all right, it's you talk about the Jacob Trouba deal. It's like, all right, that one's kind of a win-win for both teams. The Mackenzie Blackwood trade, it's a win for Colorado. It's a win for San Jose. As Kovalenko's looked good for San Jose. Blackwood has looked amazing in his debut for the Avs. This one's a lose-lose, in my opinion. I really don't see the...
What all did St. Louis give up for Fowler?
A 2027 second-round pick.
Okay, second. Well, I'd say they're probably going to get more use out of Cam Fowler than that second, if we're honest.
But
second
why?
Pick's not exactly steep.
No, but in the sense of why is St. Louis a buyer?
Because you want to win hockey games. They're 6-2 and 2.
I mean, yeah, you want to win, but you also kind of got to be realistic, and the Blues aren't a cup contending team, right? Especially with how heavy the West is. St. Louis could make the playoffs, but you're not beating Edmonton. You're not beating, Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg.
I think that right there is a massive difference. That's a huge discrepancy in how GMs look at it versus how fans look at it. I think
I agree. I agree with that.
Most GMs, they're any team that I think they all truly believe any team that makes the playoff has a chance. any team that's in the playoffs could go on that 16-game run and win. And obviously the Blues especially really unexpectedly did it 5 odd years ago. But yeah, I think they're like, we're not going to swing for the fences. We're not selling the farm to bring in new guys for this run, but I think they're like, you know what? In the next 2 years, Cam Fowler could help out the blue line, and the blue line's definitely the weak spot for that team.
I
So
like the deal for the Blues, especially with Cam Fowler already coming in now at $4 million. If if the Blues decide whether it's probably not this year, but next year at some point you retain half, some team would gladly take Cam Fowler on at $2 million. The problem is St.
that
Louis
as well.
is exactly where San Jose was a few years ago, right? Where the window's kind of closing, but they're trying to prolong it. They're trying to keep it open, even though you're not a contending. Well, you can be a contending, but like you're probably not going to win a cup. But you're trying to prolong and keep that window open for as long as possible, and moving out assets. Like I really do like giving up a second and a third to get guys like Holloway and Broberg. They've been great, but
I don't think they're on the downswing by any means.
they're not on the upswing. That's what I'm saying. They're
I would
not going
absolutely
down,
say
but
they are.
how? You're 15, 14, and 3. You're out of a playoff spot. You've got
But that's
9
their current
regulation
record. But
wins.
they're, by all signs, they should be trending up over the next year or two. Philip Broberg's looked great. He's only 23. He's only going to get better. Like, all their young guys, Kyrou, Thomas, and Buchnevich, they're all locked up for 7 more years. So you got your core locked up. Dylan Holloway is 23 years old. He's been good, getting better. Like, Toropchenko is up 25. I don't know how long he's been in the NHL, though.
Remember, but we were saying people were saying that about San Jose. You had your core locked up of you had Carlson, you had Hurdle, you had Meyer, you had LeBanc, you had Couture, you had all these pieces, and
I
it
suppose,
falls
but
apart quickly because
these guys are a lot cheaper than some of those deals. Obviously, mainly the Carlson deal. But I don't know. I think a lot of these guys are a bit more proven. Like, I would put money that next season Kairu's going to put up more than LeBanc, right?
Well, I just threw LeBanc in there because he was
Yeah,
he was kind of in that spot of like what Holloway's in, kind of just starting to break out, and then kind of took more
that's
steps
fair. That's not
backward than forwards. But
yeah. Jake
I don't
Neighbors
know.
as well.
To
I would
me,
include in that core. He's only 22, and he
actually,
looks
yeah,
like he's going to be
Jake
solid.
Neighbors I put in there. To me, again though, like Cam Fowler, it's Cam Fowler's still a good player, but it's not Cam Fowler of
It's not going to put him over the hump.
2016, 2017. Like that D core is bottom 5 in the league.
I mean, it's tough
Like,
because they have a Torrey Krug who's on LTIR, and any
Torrey
team
Krug,
that
I don't think even gets you out of bottom 5. Like you look at the team surrounding him. I like Utah's
Parayko,
blue line
Justin Falk,
better.
Broberg, Fowler, Nick Leddy, Perunovich.
That
Like,
would be a stud blue line 5 years ago. Like
it's not
it's not better
great,
than
but
it's
I
not
don't
better
know
than.
if it's bottom 5.
But like
It's not.
you
It's
look at the
not
teams
great.
around. I like Calgary's more. I like Utah's more. I like Seattle more. Probably still better than San Jose. It's better than Anaheim. Better than Chicago. Nashville, when healthy, I'm taking Nashville still because you have a franchise defenseman in Roman
I was going to say
Josi.
Roman Yossi beats like him alone versus 5 of their defensemen.
So what teams I say? There's San Jose, Anaheim, Chicago in the West. In the East, look at the bottom teams. Montreal. I like Montreal's more. Buffalo, obviously taking Buffalo.
Buffalo's
Detroit,
easy.
I'm taking Detroit. Columbus, I'm taking Columbus.
Are you
Islanders,
taking
I'm taking the
Detroit?
Islanders. Yeah.
Haven't we been shitting on Detroit's blue line like
It
all year?
Detroit's just a loser team. It's still a good blue line though. Like even the alone fact of Sider and Simone Edvinson. Below, I would 100% take Detroit if they still had Jake Wallman, but
Yeah,
apparently wasn't good enough there. Uh,
Yeah,
I
I
still
see what
think
you're saying.
Detroit's just on the high end of their, like they have at least, well, Sider's already a stud, and he's gonna be, and Edvinson's kind of finally breaking out now, which is probably partially due to Wallman being out of there to open up a big role for Edvinson. But
Yeah.
like St. Louis is, it's bottom five.
I
I
think
don't
there's
think
a couple of
there's a
those teams that are a little bit better than when you add in Torrey Krug. And I think adding in Cam Fowler helps. I think that does make their blue line better. And I think this team wants to be winning games. They don't want to go down, get another good pick, and then start going back up. They want to be on the way up. And I don't know.
yeah,
I just don't
I
care
like
about
it
the
for I
second.
like
I
it
just
for
don't think
St.
that second's worth much. So I don't see any reason not
No,
to do it.
but I like it for St. Louis if you flip Fowler. Like, I don't think
That
you should be
that
bringing
too.
in Cam Fowler being like, "You're part of our core." Like, no. The plan should be
No,
next
you don't
year,
bring in a 33-year-old
you
for that.
you flip them at the deadline. For Anaheim, uh, like you're getting a second round pick 3 years, like 3 drafts from now. Like, you should trying to get stuff to add to your team, kinda now as you're attempting to come out of a rebuild. So,
Yeah.
but with Anaheim, I'm gonna read you their blue line from 2017
All right.
and how good it was. And I'm going to tell you the pieces they got back for all of that.
All
So
right.
their blue line, 2017. First pair, Cam Fowler, Shea Theodore. Second
God,
pair,
I forgot Shea Theodore was even on the Ducks.
second pair, Hampus Lindholm, Brandon Montour.
Holy, I forgot Brandon Montour was on the Ducks. Dude.
Third pair, Josh Manson, Sammy Vatanen.
Jeez.
And who is waiting in the wings to come up and play? Marcus Pettersson.
Wow, that is a solid ass blue line.
Especially back that, like, that's a great blue line. And I mean, what did they get back? You got Adam Henrique, who you did end up flipping after getting good service out of him. So I'm okay with that. I think that was the Vatanen trade. So I actually do think Anaheim did win that trade. You got a 2018 third round pick, never amounted to anything. You got Brandon Gooley. Yeah, I actually think he retired over the summer or during the playoffs. He ended up just retiring. You got a 2019 first round pick, which you took Braden Tracy, I believe it was. Hasn't panned out to anything. You got a 2023 second round pick, so don't know if that player is what's going to become of that. You got John Moore. I believe he's still playing, but I'm not quite sure where. 2020 second first round pick. You took Nolan Gauthier. I believe his first name is Nolan. So far, you haven't got anything out of that.
Yeah,
You got a
that's rough.
2023 second round pick, which they took Clara. Again, young player, so haven't seen anything develop out of that yet, so
2023,
no
sorry,
idea.
Judge.
A 2024 second round pick, which they ended up trading. I believe, I can't remember exactly what that deal was, where they moved that one out. And then you got a 2027 second round pick. You moved out all of those defensemen, and you do not have a single player on your roster from all of this currently playing in the NHL.
Yeah,
You've got guys in the system, but you don't have an NHL player after moving out all of those great defensemen.
yeah. And
Two of which who have gone on to win a Stanley Cup.
I wouldn't even say that they need to have had a NHL player for that, because they've our team that the writing's been on the wall for years now that they're doing this rebuild, but they would need something more promising of any of the prospects.
Yeah, like even if
Like
you don't have a roster player,
they're
you'd want to
either
have like a
already
stud
bust.
prospect.
Yeah, they're either already busts or guys that it's like, well, maybe he'll turn into something. Like there's no guys from this trade where it's like that guy looks like he's going to be good. That's not even like a glowing statement. Just he looks like he'll be an NHL player someday. We don't even know if we have that.
Oh, the
So
player's talking about Braden Tracy. He's over in Finland now, so he's not even part of the organization.
yeah, like that's that's pretty damn rough. And like I'll forgive Cam Fowler. He had been there for a long ass time. I think they held on to him an extra while because he
Yeah,
kind of the lifeblood of the team. Held on to him. His trade stock clearly diminished. He could have got a first for him a few years ago,
yeah.
but they held on to him. That's fair. You got to get more for a guy like Shea Theodore. Are you kidding me? Like, dude's a
Well,
stud.
no. So Shea Theodore, that's the part where the team where everything just crumbled around them because you gave up your great up and coming young prospect to basically have Vegas, you handpick who Vegas is going to take, which was taking
Right.
Clayton Stoner and the rest of his bad contract, which again, I think he only had like a year left or something. Like, even
But
if they went the route of doing what the Islanders did with Vegas, being like, hey, you know what? Here's a first round pick. Can you take, I think it was a first round pick, and Vegas took on a bad contract, I think,
yeah.
in exchange of selecting like their fourth string goalie, which, you know what? Looking back at it now, Islanders probably could have maybe used that first round pick, but again, it's better than trading a Shea Theodore. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where everything started to crumble for the
Definitely should
Ducks.
have
And
just given him a first and said, please take that. Like, don't. Yeah, that first. Yeah, cool. You want to keep your first. It could be anything. It could even be Shea Theodore. Like,
yeah,
always take the established guy that you know more about over the absolute roulette wheel that is a draft pick. Like how many
exactly.
picks did we say they got from all those guys? None of them are doing anything.
Yeah,
That's a lot of second round picks that people are like, oh, a second rounder has value. No, they have value if they play games.
exactly. So, I mean, for St. Louis, I mean, I guess I'll still say, like, obviously they're the winner of the trade because they're getting the better piece back. If they flip Fowler, fine. I just think there's maybe more different options, different routes St. Louis could have went if they're actually trying
Yeah,
to,
it's not a massive needle
like,
mover.
at that point, attach a mid level prospect and maybe a fourth round pick or something, and go and try and get Marcus Pedersen from Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
and then that's a younger player, a guy who's, I think, at this point now better. I get they're trying to improve their blue line. I just think there's better options they could have went with at this point now.
yeah,
But
for sure. There could have been a lot nicer moves for them, but at least they didn't pay a ton in this, especially since it's a second that's so far in the future. Um,
yeah,
this might be nice for the Ducks. Right now, it's kind of weird. Uh, I feel like Cam Fowler probably does more in the locker room to help your young guys than than this trade will do for you in actual assets. Like I feel
yeah,
like it's one of those things where it's like, bolded, underlined intangibles. He just helps out in the locker room. He's been around for so long. I think he could have just been a good fit that way, but who knows? Maybe he's not that guy. I mean, maybe there's a reason he's not the captain, right?
I think well, I think just at this point now, well, the reason I think they didn't give him the C is because, like, it was already established kind of in the offseason that he was gonna get traded. It was just basically a matter of when. So I mean, it did make sense to give him the C to
Well,
trade him not long after,
yeah,
right?
but they established that they were trading him on their own. They could have said we're not trading you and made him the captain.
I think,
Unless he asked out. I don't know if he asked out.
I don't believe he asked out, but I think it was one of those things where the Ducks are kind of like, we're trying to get younger, we're kind of trying to come out of a rebuild. You stuck here all the way through, but we want to give you a chance to go and be back in the playoffs and try and win a cup elsewhere. Because, like,
Yeah.
realistically, the Ducks, what's Cam Fowler, 33?
33, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So the Ducks probably aren't winning a cup in the next 5 years. Like, I'm sure that even the next 5 years they'll be back in the playoffs, and in 5 years they'll
Yeah.
probably actually be a strong contender in the West. But I don't think they're winning a cup. So, I think you thank Cam Fowler for his services, but say, hey, go on and try and win a cup elsewhere.
Yeah.
We want to give you an opportunity. We don't want you to sit here and just rot away. And maybe he wanted to. Maybe he wanted to stay and rot on the Ducks, but the Ducks do need to get younger, and doing right by your player does it sets a better precedent than what the Rangers are doing. It shows that you treat your player right and you do right by them. So I will give them credit for that. I think they did handle it well with Fowler. So the return sucks, but I don't remember the last time Anaheim was really won a trade.
People sometimes will value those second round picks, and I don't think any team. There's not a lot of teams that are just starting their rebuild, Like, we're at a weird point where even though there's 32 damn teams, nobody's just going into a rebuild. Like, in the next few years, the Penguins probably have to.
Calgary's the team that we thought would have been. Calgary's like the only team, but apparently they're not even.
I would have had 3 potential teams for it. The Flames, the Capitals, and the Penguins. The Flames and the Capitals just decided we're going to be good this year. So they're in a weird spot. But
and the Penguins are just prolonging because
they're not going to
kind of run it back one more time with
Crosby.
They're
not going to commit to it until Crosby's done. And you know what? That's just what you have to do when you have a top 5 player league history on your team. You just have
exactly
to.
Right.
Like,
you know what? I don't think
you can't compare it to anything.
Like, it sucks losing, but the alternative is blow it up and get rid of Crosby and start the rebuild now, which some Penguins fans may like, but I think the vast majority would be pretty upset to see Crosby play anywhere else.
It's Sid the Kid.
It's pretty sweet to just say, you know what, we had Crosby, we are loyal to him, and he played his entire career here.
Yeah. And he's probably going to be your coach or your GM or something afterwards. He's probably gonna...
I don't put him coach. I think you just find a spot for him in management somewhere you can actually just keep him there forever. Right? Because it's the same reason as that Ottawa didn't hire Daniel Alfredson as their head coach, because they never wanted to cross that bridge of having to fire him one day.
Well, depends what he wants to do, right? If Crosby's like, no, I'm going to be a coach afterwards. He just strikes me as a guy who wants to be as close to hockey as possible.
Yeah, I think
you're not on the ice as a GM as much.
Yeah, I think you could find other, like, I think you can find other roles. Like, I always love the idea of, like, like, it's, I don't know. I just never liked the thought of, crossing that bridge where the Penguins would have to fire Sidney Crosby as their coach.
Yeah.
At that point, honestly, that it's just as bad as trading him. It would just ruin.
No, that wouldn't be as bad as trading him during his playing career. Come on now.
But once you fire him, great, you know the door is closed, right? You're like, that's it.
No, it's not. There are plenty of teams that have fired a guy as a coach and then he's come back later on in a managerial role. Or there's quite a few teams that have had coaches, when they're done being the coach, the assistant takes his job and he goes straight from coach to, like, I don't want to say GM, but I feel like they usually go up to assistant GM and then obviously from there to GM.
Yeah, it's what Steen is doing with.
I was going to say, I'm trying to think. There's one player that I know went from playing with the team straight into assistant coach, then to head coach, then to, like, assistant GM, and I think he might be president of one of the teams now, of, like, hockey ops or something.
Yeah, I got no clue who that would be. I honestly, for Crosby, like, just take the Patrick Marleau route. Just, be like, I don't want to be a coach, but I'm going to do player development. I'm going to help you develop your prospects.
That'd be a nice way to develop
and,
prospects,
like, there's no one better. There's literally no one better I think you could pick than Sidney Crosby to develop.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would point towards, Wayne Gretzky, notoriously the best player to ever play the game, and he wasn't a good coach. It didn't work out in Phoenix, and he just didn't work as a head coach. Not all guys are going to work as head coaches.
And there's a reason after Phoenix he didn't go on to coach anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like,
you're telling me Wayne Gretzky wants to be a head coach and can't find a job, was probably not great at it, right? But
yeah,
I think Crosby he just seems like a guy that would be
who still
perfect at
wants
it.
to go to the rink. He wants a reason to go to the rink still. He wants to go there and continue to be a part of hockey.
Yeah.
And I think that'll happen in whatever way. But we should move on here. Let's.
I do just wonder if the Ducks on purpose got if they got this second round pick in the future for those teams that are not quite in the rebuild yet, though the Calgarys, the Pittsburghs, and the Washingtons, if they are planning on giving it to one of those teams, maybe not even this season or even next season, but like, in 2 years, the Ducks are looking to get into the playoffs. And
it's the best value they could have got, though.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get a first, and St. Louis doesn't have their second round pick in 2025 or 2026. They got the earliest second round pick they could from the Blues. Because obviously you weren't getting a first.
No.
I'm assuming like St. Louis wasn't giving up a higher end prospect or anything. So unless Anaheim was willing to take a third this year or a third next year, it was really the best they could do. Yeah. And they probably should just flip it.
That's the thing.
Point,
I think this will be part of a bigger package. Like I could see them, going out in 2 years and okay, the Flames are fucking deep in a rebuild now. You know what? Let's package this second with, a first and whatever else you need to, and bring in a Mackenzie Weegar or something. Like, when one of those teams is going full rebuild mode, you could bring in a Chikrin, a Connor McMichael, depending on where they are.
Yeah. And you know what? No better team to look to than just a little bit north of them, San Jose. That's kind of been Mike Gear's whole thing through that rebuild is, he has no problem making a move, bringing in a picker prospect, and then flipping it to get better assets. Right? That's how you kind of speed the process along. You don't sit patiently on something 3 years down the line, right? If you have a chance to act on it and get better now and bring pieces in now, you do it. So I think both pieces. I think Fowler gets flipped by St. Louis at some point, probably next year, and this second round pick gets dumped off at some point when there's a big piece the Ducks can
get it.
Or even if it's something as simple as you use that second to sweeten the offer, so you don't have to retain on Gibson's contract. That's fine then. Like if you don't have to retain for years on Gibson's contract, I think that's a win there. So
and I think they need to be hard and fast on that. I think they cannot retain on him at all.
Yeah. Well, trading Fowler doesn't help that because it's not going to make the team better in front of Gibson to try and bring his trade value up from near zero. But
there's not as much room for him after trading for Trouba either.
Yeah.
I do just want to throw out right before we move on from this. February 3rd, 2022 is when the current general manager of the Ducks, Pat Verbeek, was named the GM. So February 2022. So a lot of those moves with those defensemen, those all happened with Bob Murray, the GM before him. So,
it's all beforehand. Yeah.
So it's not like
GM
it wasn't over there is burning it to the ground.
Yeah, no, it wasn't to dunk on Verbeek. It was just talking about how they went from having
just giving some context.
At the time, I think it was one of the best defensive cores in the league, and not only that, it was actually relatively young. And
I would hope so at that point.
To not have really anything sitting there to be like, hey, at least we have this to show for it. That's bad. That's bad. And that's a big part, I think, of why the rebuild has been as long as it has. Because they've been in the rebuild for quite a while now.
Yeah.
But moving on, we will move on to Boston. Then we got a little bit of Buffalo news. The Boston Bruins claimed forward Oliver Wahlstrom off waivers from the New York Islanders. if you are a Boston fan, if you are a member or just a person in the Boston area, you all know the famous video of Oliver Wahlstrom when he was a kid, grew up in Boston, uh, during a youth hockey tournament or something like that at TD Garden, and he pulled off the sweet kind of, center ice Michigan style spin around, flip it up top corner. I remember
Oh,
watching that video when I
the
was
hurricane.
when I was
Yeah,
young. Uh, Full circle now, gets drafted to the NHL, goes to the Islanders,
I didn't know that
ends
was
up
him.
back in Boston. Yeah, yeah, right.
Like I saw that
Um,
when YouTube was like people were trying to figure out how memes worked. So that was
Back when
old.
like the most popular videos on YouTube were just you take a 30-second Family Guy clip and you get a million likes in a day. That's
Yeah,
like
dude.
all YouTube was at
Yeah,
the
dude.
time.
Hulu was king.
Yeah. But Oliver Wahlstrom, what was he? 2019 draft? 2018. He was 2018.
2018.
2018, 11th overall by the New York Islanders. 220 games played in the NHL, 36 goals, 35 assists for 71 points. I mean, I think at this point it doesn't hurt Boston to take a swing on this guy,
Player for
from the
free.
area. Yeah, player for free. You hope you can maybe tap into something that uh, three NHL coaches weren't able to do. Two of them, uh, Hall of Fame guys, and Barry Trotz and Patrick Waugh. They just couldn't get him going. So, I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah, take a chance on him. He's 24. He's got a wicked shot. You just try and get some intensity and light a fire under him and hope it can work out. There's really not much to say. It's a no risk, potentially high reward for Boston. So
Yeah.
why not, right? Like,
Even if he plays fourth line minutes and stays in your lineup, like that's
well, you don't.
player
He's
for
not a
free.
fourth line guy though.
No, but
Like he's not good defensively.
fair. But
So
they
when
do have quite a few
you,
guys
you
that are good defensively down there, so maybe they can either make him better defensively or cover up for it when
yeah.
he's just sitting there waiting for breakaways on the other team's blue line.
Yeah, I will say if they can get him going on the power play, he does have a wicked one-timer, wicked shot, which can be very valuable. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I like it for Boston. For the Islanders, I mean, you kind of just had to rip the Band-Aid off. Uh, you three different coaches have tried to make it work and just aren't able to get it going with them. So at some point, you just got to be like, it sucks losing a guy that you took as high as 11th overall. 6-7 years ago.
wouldn't be the first rounder that the Islanders lost for nothing.
Oh no, there is many we could go through. uh, at this point, you just cut ties and you wipe your hands clean. And you just start moving on.
Yeah,
It wasn't going to work. And if it works out in Boston, awesome. I'd be super happy for Wahlstrom. I think he can still be a good player. And if you're the Islanders, you can just sit there and be like, you know what, we tried. Like you can't sit there and be like, fuck. If we kept pushing, like it wasn't going to work. So
yeah, he's played there for 5 years.
yeah. And again, three coaches. Not one of them could get him going.
Well, I will say that almost seems more like a detriment at a certain point. Like new coaches keep coming in, you can't really find a consistent system, especially for a young player. I don't know if that would necessarily
no,
help, but
because there's numerous players on the Islanders now that have come up through these coaches, guys that were lower on the depth chart than Wahlstrom, and were able to grab a spot on that team and make an impact.
yeah, fair.
Like it really just came down to it wasn't going to work there.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you could point to numerous ones. It wasn't going to work. It's no fault of the player. It's no fault of the team. Both sides tried to give it their all, and sometimes it just doesn't work. And you know what? That's okay. I've heard that many times. I've heard that many times, so I understand. And I wish Oliver Wahlstrom all the best in Boston, where I'm sure he's very happy to go.
Yeah. The Buffalo Sabres players met with owner Terry Pegula and general manager Kevin Adams today in Montreal after their 10-game losing skid. 10 games.
I
Good
don't know. I don't
God.
know if Buffalo does. And apparently, it was reported that Buffalo's not looking to make any bigger drastic trades at this time. So I know there's rumors about others, but there's rumors to both sides, I guess. So don't really know, but
You know what the crazy part of
it's
all this
actually
is?
Buffalo.
The Sabres are on, again, 10-game losing streak. They're only 2 points behind the Red Wings.
Yeah.
They're really not losing their spot in the standings somehow. They must have gone on some sort of heater right before this 10-game losing streak. Like, the Sens are on a 3-game win streak. They're only, they're 3 wins ahead of the Sabres. They're 6 points ahead. So, like, up until their most recent 3 games for the Sens, they were tied with the Sabres, who just cannot get off of 26 points. So, that's
But that's a
promising
lot though, because if Buffalo's fighting
for
for a
them.
playoff spot, those are teams you're going to want to be battling with, right? Even
Yeah.
if Boston lost 7, at least you're tied with Ottawa and you're still in the fight despite a kind of a big midseason skid.
Yeah.
It's I mean, the Ottawa one is kind of the team like Detroit. I'm just kind of like I don't think they're a playoff team at this point now. At least this year, I don't see them making it.
Yeah.
And even the Rangers, I got to imagine they find something eventually and get back in there. Like they're sitting outside of the playoffs.
Goal differential of
Uh,
+1 for the Rangers. It's
like
pretty rough.
Buffalo's not catching Tampa Bay. They're not catching Boston. They're not catching Florida, Toronto. Like if they want playoffs, you're going for a wild card spot. And there's probably only going to be
And
one wild card spot
yeah,
available.
and you're going for wild card 2, which means you have to beat all but 3 teams in the Metro and everyone remaining in the Atlantic.
Yeah, like you're fighting
I've
with Ottawa, Philly, the Rangers, Pittsburgh,
yeah,
and Islanders are still right in there.
it feels like a team that has a 10-game losing streak anywhere in the season, barring if you're literally McDavid's team. I feel like you shouldn't be able to come back from that. And you know, they would have to play their asses off, but it kind of looks like it's still on the table. Like they're only 6 back from the Sens, and they would be in behind the Lightning in the Atlantic, and like the Sens are no stranger to going on a losing streak. The Sabres win a couple. Like it feels
Problem
like they
is
should be
with
way further out of it. It does not look good for that team. They are in shambles right now.
who?
But
Sorry,
like it, yeah, I don't know.
the
It
the
feels like
Rangers.
yeah, the Rangers
Oh,
are going to be
okay.
tough for them to deal with.
Y- y-
But
And the thing with Buffalo, right? Like you're getting solid goaltending. You're not getting like great elite goaltending, but you're getting solid goaltending, which I think is really all you need. Like that's fine.
they
Tage
shouldn't be expecting
Thompson
elite.
bounced back. Alex Tuck, he's being a warrior. Jason Zucker's been a great ad. Paterka's doing his thing. Darlene Power, Byram, all looking good, right? Dylan Cousins though, 13 points in 31 games. For a guy in your top 6, you're kind of wanting him to carry a little bit more of the workload. But here's the big issue. Jack Quinn has 7 points in 25 games, and Yuri Kulich has 4 goals, 0 assists in 21 games. Those are 2 young guys, former first round picks as well, that you were really hoping could come into your lineup this year and make at least some sort of impact. And they really haven't done that yet. If those guys came in and were going at like on pace for even 35 points in their rookie year, that's solid. Like that's to have that in your top 9 is huge addition. So it's not a bad team. Like I actually really like the way Buffalo's kind of built their team up. But
It's a nice looking roster. It just doesn't. Yeah, like Jack Quinn, 37 points in 75 games in his rookie year. Next year, down to only 19 points. That's in only 27 games. Like that's on pace for like a 65-point season or so. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
good. This year, 7-25. I wonder if Buffalo going back to Lindy Ruff was a bit of a mistake.
I think so. I kind of thought so at the time. Like if, yeah,
Like
I wasn't a fan of the hire.
I
I
just
think
don't
he's a good
I
coach,
don't
but I
even
just
really
think there
get
was better
why,
options.
honestly. Yeah, honestly, I don't even know if he's a good coach at this point. He's fine, passable at best, but like good
I think
implies
the
that
game
he's
just kind of
positive.
passed him by.
Yeah, right? Like he's not ruining teams. He's just can't keep up. And I get it. You point to New Jersey, look how good they are. Hey, guess what? Jack Hughes was going to be a star no matter who coached him. Like
Yeah.
they have several players that feel like borderline undeniable talents. And I guess you could say the same thing about Buffalo. Maybe they should have some of them, but it's not shaken out that way, and they need to. I. It sounds goofy because I'm sure Buffalo's gone through a lot of coaching changes, but yeah,
You know what I would do if I'm Buffalo, and I don't know if this would. I think you'd have like there'd have to be more pieces to it to make it work. But
he's cooking. He's
your
cooking.
their defense is clogged. I, there would have to be more pieces, but I would almost try and find a deal of moving Dylan Cousins, send him to Calgary, and try and
Dylan
get Rasmus
Cousins,
Anderson back.
who they are, I believe, looking to trade. There are several teams reportedly looking at trading for him.
I don't think they're necessarily. I think it's one of those things where they're not like actively shopping him, but I think it's kind of out there that like, hey,
they're taking
if you give us
calls.
a good enough deal,
Yeah.
we're not going to say no. Because
Reportedly, Nashville is the biggest one in on him, but that's neither here nor there. Not a lot of rumors to that.
I don't think that solves Nashville's problems.
Probably not, but it makes him a little younger.
It does because like looking at Buffalo, like obviously Rasmus Dahlin is uh, currently injured at the moment. He hasn't played since December 3rd, so he has been out for quite a few of their losses there. But even when he's in the lineup, your top four are all left-handed defensemen, and this is the issue we talked about going into the season. You've got Owen Power, you've got Bone Barm, you've got Matthias Samuelsson, you've got Rasmus Dahlin, all left-handed defensemen. Like your best right-hand defenseman is Henry Jokiharju, who I think at this point is if you've got him on your second pair, okay, but he's probably best suited on your third pair. Like I think you need to bring in a legit top four right-handed defenseman. I think you need that. And I think a guy like Rasmus Anderson would be perfect.
Yeah, I think Anderson would fit this team pretty well.
And I think Calgary would have no problem bringing in a guy like Dylan Cousins, who, he's a Canadian, he's from Whitehorse, so, Calgary's kind of the closest, along with Vancouver to kind of, and Edmonton, I guess, to kind of be back somewhat close to home. Like, so maybe he could be a guy long term for them. He is a young centerman. They get him going there.
Yeah, I could.
They got to
really
do
see that
something for
working
their
out.
blue line. I just don't think you can be a. It's just I think it's too tough going out there being your first pair and your second pair are all left-handed defensemen. I think you need to have at least one right-handed guy to make it work a little bit better.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. It's they have so much talent on this team. It really is crazy looking at it. Like Ukko Pekka-Luukkonen's been good. He hasn't been elite. He's not stealing them games, obviously, but he's giving them a chance to win most of their games. And they've got a lot of good defensemen. They should be better defensively between the goalie and the defense, and they should be scoring more. Looking at this forward core, like, dude, if this roster was anywhere but Buffalo, I swear they'd be in a playoff spot. It just feels cursed in Buffalo, man.
It kind of does. It also doesn't help that, like, you trade away your best prospect in, well, maybe not best, but like one of your best prospects in Matt Savoy. You send him to Edmonton. You bring in Ryan McLeod to make him your fourth line center. Like that's not really great value there for. And don't get me wrong, I think McLeod has actually been a nice, fun addition for Buffalo, but
Yeah,
like,
could be a nice addition for the future as well. RFA this
yeah,
upcoming offseason.
I think he'll be a great player. But again, it's like, if you're moving out your top prospect, like, you want to be getting something
Yeah,
a little more impactful, I think, right? Not to
yeah,
say
you
Ryan
gotta move
McLeod's
up.
a bad player, but I think it's just more kind of lost value than anything.
Yeah, that's fair. But you know, a lot of people, a lot of people are pointing, this season, what's going wrong in particular. I've heard a lot of people say Jack Quinn. I'm hearing a lot of people say Zach Benson. Brother, if your season is hinging on the performance of a 19-year-old Zach Benson and unproved Jack Quinn, like a guy whose season high in points is 37, I get you want to see it improve. But if that's what your team's success hinges on, you got issues there.
Yeah,
Like
and
you,
and
you need
maybe that's what Buffalo needs to do. Maybe you need to just. I mean, you brought in good veteran presence and a guy like Jason Zucker, but maybe you need more. Like, it's a young team,
it's a young
and
team.
maybe you just need a little bit more veteran leadership in some role, even if it's a fourth line role, even if it's bottom defensive pair.
Yeah, dude. Bring in Pat Maroon. Like, do something.
Pat Maroon actually was kind of a guy to think of. Like, bring him in, plug him in on the fourth line, and just be a leader, be
Just
another
captain of
voice
vibes.
in that room, right? So I don't know. Buffalo's got a good team, and I think I kind of agree with you. If they were anywhere else but Buffalo,
I feel like
probably
they'd
have a
be
better
worse.
record at least to show for it.
I think if a good head coach becomes available, they need to do exactly what St. Louis did. And
They missed the boat on that one. He was
yeah,
there. Jim Montgomery was there.
I think Jim was always going to St. Louis though.
I
'Cause
kind of think so too, but
he literally tied the record for fastest rehiring of a head coach in league history. Um, which was either like 5 or 6 days. And then he was also an assistant coach. Before he was head coach in Boston, he was assistant coach in uh, St. Louis. So I
mhm.
imagine there's really good ties there.
I will say though, like, I do think Buffalo could benefit from a coaching change, but I'm not putting this all on Lindy Ruff. A lot of it is still on the players. Like, a lot
Yeah,
of it is still on the players to go out there and get it done. Like, a guy like Jason Zucker on the third line has 21 points in 31 games. You've got guys like uh, Jack Quinn, Zach Benson, Dylan
yeah.
Cousins, all in your top six. They're not out producing
They're,
Zucker.
they're all children. They're all
Yeah. Look,
23.
exactly. Yeah.
Like I'm trying. I can't even make a comparable on Tampa. Like I just try to because that's what I know. Even guys like Hagel, he's like 4 years older than them.
Yeah.
He's like 3 or 4. Like they're pretty freaking young. Like
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I
some
think they
veteran
need some veteran
leadership is,
presence.
yeah.
Like a lot of these teams, like I'll people will be like, that's a young team, and I'll look and I'll be like, yeah, it's young, but 32, 33, 32, 31. Like they'll still have usually like 4, 5, 6 guys that have been around for a while. They
Yeah.
literally have 2 guys on cap friendly that are over 30. 30 is not an old benchmark either. And
Mhm.
one of them is a known piece, James Reimer is their backup goalie, and then Zucker. Zucker, who's working out very well for him. So
And again, he's probably getting moved, I imagine, because he just keeps signing those 1 year deals to bounce around. So I gotta imagine he probably gets moved at the deadline
Sa-
like he usually does
Sabres
every
can't
year.
afford to Sabres can't afford to let him go.
If he's going either way, you might as well get something back.
I think they should extend him before trading him. You can't trade for future assets forever. That's how you end up trading those future assets away for a guy like Ryan McLeod.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, like, if you're a losing team, you have to overpay guys to stick around. You have to make it worth their while if they want to stay in a, unfortunately for Buffalo, losing
especially
environment.
if they can retain on it in the future. Like, do you think Jason Zucker says no to a 2-year, $7 million contract extension?
Probably not.
I don't think a lot of teams are giving them a 7 years.
No,
right?
but you got to do things with Buffalo with how young they are. Like you can't, you still do have to kind of. Buffalo's just in such a weird spot, right? Because they have too many young players.
Of money, then you're not having to add a clause. He probably has no trade protection, and he doesn't care. Where's he going that's worse than Buffalo, right? And he's getting
I agree.
Fat stacks, so you'll be able to move that because you can retain on it, and it'll only be 2 more years. Like, I feel like you could, he's producing well now. He's what pretty much the only veteran presence other than Alex Tuck on this team, and I think you got to hold on to that, and you got to surround them with a little bit more of that, because, and I'm not even a guy who really likes the whole veteran presence argument, because usually most teams have a few just still lying around from the glory days or whatever. Like, teams naturally just kind of seem to usually have them. Like, I would have guessed this team had at least a few. But
they're just in such a tough spot because you need veteran leadership and presence, but at the same time you have so many guys coming up that you got to pave a way for. They're just in a tough spot. They're in a really tough spot where
and not let those guys in, though. Like,
you're not trading away a guy like who was the guy they took last year, Hellenius. You're not shelling him out to another team to hold on to a Jason Zucker.
Does Hellenius become anything without a guy like Zucker?
I think so. He was the only reason is because he was the one guy in the draft who I had higher because he can, I think, make the easiest transition to the NHL. And I think he's actually doing quite well in the AHL already this season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I just think there's a lot of guys they could move out that they should not care about standing in the way of developing the guys that they know can be
Hellenius,
guys like Zach Benson and whatnot.
Hellenius is an 18-year-old, has 16 points in 26 games in the NHL. That's why I'm saying Dylan Cousins.
I'm talking about guys on their roster as well.
Dylan Cousins is the one who needs to go. Out of everyone on this team, he is I think in my opinion, kind of the odd man out.
But there's a lot of fringe players that just are taking up a spot that a better veteran presence could help.
But who?
Sam Lafferty, Nick Aube-Kubel. I don't know much about Beck Malenstein, but he's 26 years old. I doubt he's going to get that much better.
Beck Malenstein's kind of just the tough guy. He's kind of their tough guy. So with all the young guys, like if someone goes out there and throws a headshot on Zach Benson, like Beck Malenstein's gonna get in there and protect him. Aube-Kubel, it kind of looks like he's kind of their kind of 13th forward. He comes in here and there. Lafferty, he actually, I don't know on this season, but I know he played a very solid kind of 2-way game with the Canucks.
Yeah.
Like
you can't keep giving guys because they're good players. You can't just keep them around when the team goes on 10-game losing streaks and never makes the playoffs again.
Well, I mean, does it benefit the team to move out Lafferty's 29. That's fine. I think Dylan Cousins. I think you just say
that doesn't make that. That's one roster spot, and it's higher up in the.
But you can't give up on Jack Quinn. Yeah, you can't give up on Yuri Kulich.
No, don't move those guys. Give up on Beck Malenstein and Aube-Kubel being part of the team going forward as
But
as the
that's just
overall
fourth
future.
line players.
Yeah, that's
You
all they
need to
need.
inject something into your top nine, I think.
I think they just need to bring in king of vibes, man. I think they just need guys that are gonna freaking teach them half as much as the coach. Like,
I think you do it. I don't know.
I think this team would have gotten way more out of
Like
a guy
the
like
team doesn't.
Stamkos than Nashville ever could hope to.
Yeah, but like I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm like Buffalo doesn't immediately become better if you take out Beck Mallenstein on the fourth line and put in Pat
No,
Murray. It doesn't make the team better.
Connor McDavid wouldn't make this team better. They'd go out there and lose game 11, 12, 13 in a row. They'd find a way to lose, man. This team, they
Yeah.
can't do it. The talent is there. Talent's not the issue. It's bringing out the potential in that talent. And I think that's where some of those guys would help out, a Nick Foligno type. Obviously, they're not getting Foligno. He's stapled to Bedard for eternity. But I do think it's something along those lines. And you just need those guys on your roster, like playing 4 minutes a night. Like, just something. I don't know. I don't know if it's that, if it's
I
the
don't think
coach.
that turns it around for him though. I really don't. To be
Just
honest,
what
I
else
really
could it
don't know
be?
what fixes this
Bringing more
team.
talent doesn't do anything. They have more talent than Detroit. They have more talent than Ottawa, but none of it's producing.
I think I would still give Ottawa the slight edge probably.
I don't think
Ottawa's
Tage
got a
Thompson
few.
could be a 100-point player. Cousins could be good, but he plays like shit. Tuck could be an 80-point guy. Zach Benson, Jack Quinn, they could all be phenomenal players, but they're just not.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
sure, they are young, but how long do we get to say they're young for?
yeah.
Dylan Cousins,
Honestly,
like
for
a lot of them are
Buffalo,
23, 24.
I think if Buffalo, you make a coaching change, and again, I still think you need to bring in a right-handed defenseman for your top four. I don't care how good your top four is with the guys when they're all healthy. If you're rolling two pairs out there and they're all lefties, I just don't think that works. I really don't. I
I
just think you're
haven't
doing
seen
a
their
disservice
numbers.
to two of your guys by forcing them to go play on their offside where I mean, sure they may do fine, but they would thrive much more in their natural position. Like even if I think Bowen Byram actually is. I think he can do the right side. I think that's fine. I kind of see him as like a Thomas Harley type. Um, but like I think you're better off just letting guys like first overall picks like Darlene and Power dominate on their proper side where they're comfortable. Don't force them into being something they're not, right?
Yeah.
Especially when guys like that just first overall picks. Don't force them to do something else. Let them do what they did to make them a first overall pick. And whoever you slot Byerman with, fine. Go get a right hand defenseman and let them really round out that top four. I think could benefit him. And then I don't know
I
who
can
you
see
bring
it.
in as a coach. I don't know who. I don't know what kind of coach they need really.
Can
But
you trade coaches?
no,
Is that something you can do?
no, no.
Do you think it would help either team if they went Andrew Brunette for Lindy Ruff straight up?
I think both teams get worse.
Is that even possible? They're on a 10-game losing streak.
I think both teams get worse. I don't think Andrew Brunette is what Buffalo needs. Like hell, if Andrew Brunette can't get shit going with veterans and stuff he's got there, I doubt he's gonna get it to work with a bunch of young guys in Lindy Ruff. I love Lindy, but I think eventually you just need to realize and be like, all right, I just gotta call it.
Yeah.
I just need to call it a
Honestly,
career, and
yeah,
if you want to stay in hockey, find another way, but or
they
fuck, go somewhere else and be the right hand man of a John Tortorella or something.
yeah.
Go
They
be his go to guy on the bench with him or
they
something.
should bring in Drew Bannister in Buffalo.
I wouldn't hate that actually.
I think he did a good job
You've
in
got
St. Louis.
I think he did a good job there. I think he's still a bit of an unknown. Didn't really get a fair shake. So
Yeah. And the
I would
Sabres pretty
like
much
that.
only deal in unknowns.
A Todd
What's this
McClellan
team gonna
wouldn't
look like in
be.
the playoffs?
Out in
Like,
4.
what is their
You
what does
get
their
swept, you maybe get 1 goal on
vibes
home ice.
even look like? Like, I don't even know what their arena would look like with a playoff atmosphere.
Yeah, oh, I no doubt in my mind it would be sold out. It'd be packed, but
Yeah, because the people in Buffalo would be treating it like Haley's Comet. This happens once every 50 years. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know Buffalo, man. I wanna root for this team so bad. I want them to be in the playoffs. I wanna just see a Buffalo
before
playoff
this
game
10
again,
games,
but
they were good. They were doing really
yeah.
well.
But remember 3 years ago? I think it was around this time they were first in the league. They were the number 1 team, and they missed the playoffs. They always
Yeah.
seem to get off to a hot start at the start of the year. Vibes are good, teams are rolling, and then at some point in the season, the wheels just fall off the wagon,
Yeah. And
and
then
they can't recover.
their goal differential is minus 12. That's not great. The Boston Bruins, who are in a playoff spot, minus 19. That's 7 worse than the Sabres.
Yeah, I don't look into Washington broke that model last year.
Like, it's possible. It's possible for them to turn
It's
around. They
it
got
is
the talent. They
possible,
just
but something has
something's
to
got to.
change. It's the same as
Yeah,
Nashville, right? We
yeah.
can be like, this should be a playoff. Well, not maybe in Buffalo's case, they should be a playoff team, but they can at least compete or contend for that spot. But
I
again,
don't think they
something
should
has
be.
to change.
Like, looking at their roster, they should be a defensive juggernaut. They've got good two-way players, a pretty good goalie, and really good top six. Honestly, like, they should be a top 10 defensive team in the league. I think is not an unreasonable ask.
Hmm.
It just it's just is they're just not. Need to find a scientist who's smarter than I am to figure out why on that one. Another team that is in the Atlantic race that we've talked about a couple of times, the Ottawa Senators. Uh, they've got somebody who's going out and proving people wrong right about now, and that is one Linus Ullmark.
Oh, I thought you were
His
going to talk about Travis Green. I was so
nah,
ready. I was so excited.
nah, I don't talk about Travis Green. Uh,
We're gonna
the
get there eventually. You're gonna have to take a knee and say you were wrong on it.
oh no, did I take a big stance on him?
Yeah, you said it was awful. It was an awful hire for Ottawa.
Oh, well, you know what? I stand by it. He probably sucks.
Hey, you know what? Exact opposite of Buffalo though. They're 7-2-1. Teams on a roll. Tim Stuetzel's looking probably I think the best he's ever looked in the NHL.
Yep.
Drake Batherson is having a phenomenal year.
A lot of guys are having real good seasons over there. And
Yeah.
that now includes Linus Ullmark, who wasn't at the start of the year. He is now up to a 910 save percentage. In his last 5 games, he was a 923, a 912, a 950, a 973, a 969, and then most recently got a shutout against the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
So he is I mean, when was the last time over a 6 game stretch Ottawa had something like that? The Hamburglar?
So yeah. Well, I don't want to say that because you know what? They actually did get good value out of Craig Anderson. They just never put a team in front of him
Fair.
because he was actually always he was very solid for Ottawa. I think he just kind of unfortunately was just that filler goalie when they were going through the
Yeah, he was
lowest of
in
the lows.
between.
Yeah, the millman.
But
Yeah, it's huge for Ottawa. That's exactly what they needed. They needed. I mean, goaltending was the biggest issue with them, and they're finally getting it. And they've got good coaching, which always helps.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
they've definitely been turning around as of late. It's so weird. Like I was saying earlier, like, 3 game win streak. It feels like they've been doing so much better as of late, and yet they're not pulling away from the pack. And it's not
yeah,
even because the pack is keeping up. The Red Wings 4-4-2, the Sabres 0 whatever and whatever in their last 10. Like,
yeah,
these teams just can't get away from each other. There's just so many overtime losses and just not enough consistent wins to be able to break out.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you.
But that's about all I got on the Sens there. Just wanted to highlight Allmark, who was people were giving him the business pretty good for the first 20 games of the year.
And I always said that I don't think I ever said it on here, but I always said the criticism that Swayman was getting, I think was fair. But I didn't like it for Allmark because Allmark's the guy that had to go to a new team. He had to have a new team playing in front of him, new environment, everything. Swayman kind of got to stick around with his boys. So, I think now that I think both of them. I think Swayman's you're starting to see him get back into it a bit more. Allmark's getting comfortable. He's starting to look good. It's making it a little bit of an interesting case now for who starts for Sweden in the Four Nations now. I was pretty confident on Gustafsson, but if Allmark's balling out, you might have a little bit of competition, which I think is always going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think right now it's still Gustafsson, but like
I do think so right now still. Yeah.
he's making them have the conversation, bare minimum. They have to at least
Which
talk about it.
is exactly what you'd want if you're Sweden, right? I think you're better off having at least a debate between two great goals and just being like one.
Yeah.
You mentioned you had something still to talk about at the end, right? Or
that was Linus
oh,
Ullmark.
okay. Um, I have one thing, and then I don't know if we have anything else, but this might just be the last one. World Juniors. I said it, and I said it might happen again, and it is happening again. Team Canada. So, practice and all that fun stuff has already kind of started for World Juniors. Their top point scorer out of all the players that made Team Canada on their respective teams, Gavin McKenna on the Medicine Hat Tigers in the WHL, has 60 points on the season. He's put up more points than anyone else on Team Canada throughout their respective seasons so far. He is currently the 12th/13th forward. He is the guy who has kind of been rotating in on the fourth line for Team Canada.
Jackasses they got running these.
Like
Obviously we know all the names that run the Four Nations and stuff. Dude, who's in charge of the juniors?
honestly, off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure. But
do they just have some absolute fucking idiot coaching them? What is this?
the best player on the team last year, Celebrini, I believe he was basically their third liner. I think he even was on the fourth line a little bit. And now you've got again. I think there's lots of good players on Team Canada, but I think Gavin McKenna, even though he's 16, he's your best player. I think he's their best player, and you've got him not even just fourth line, rotating in on your fourth line.
It's so brutal, man.
Especially when, again, we talked about it, they went the route of having role players, having actual kind of third line checking forwards, fourth line checking forwards.
What the hell's the point of being the best country in the world consistently at hockey if you're not going to just stack all the talent and be like, we're better than everyone?
Not only that, doing exactly what every other team does. Every other team grabs their best players. Team Canada can't wrap their head around that. And to the point where your best player, you're like, yeah, he's just young, so we're not going to play him. Or we're going to have him play fourth line. Give me a break.
Dave Cameron,
yes. Dave Cameron, yeah.
Yeah, just need to make sure we're dragging his name specifically through the mud in case we lose again this year, because... Oh. Man. Dude, just put the best players in. God.
Yeah.
You don't need to
get. It's not even your best players, but it's the fact that your best player is you're starting him out on the fourth line is absurd.
Yeah.
It's wild. I don't get it, but
you look at past Canadian World Junior teams, And I feel like a lot of the time, you look at ones from 20 years ago, and it's a who's who of holy crap, these guys were awesome. Like, it's
Yeah.
impossible to tell right now, but like, is it just me or does it feel like there's several guys on there that are just gonna kind of fade into existence? We're just not
Um,
gonna know who they are.
well, I don't know.
I'm trying to find where their roster is.
Like when I'm looking at their team, I a lot like there's other players that I think make more sense, but like I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, this guy doesn't deserve to be on the team because I think they do have actually put together like
No,
at,
but
at least a decently solid team. It could have definitely been better. Don't get me wrong.
and that's kind
Um,
of what I'm getting at. Like a lot of the guys, uh, I really thought it would be easier to find their roster, but I can't seem to find it anywhere. Um, like 80% of some of the past rosters are like Hall of Famers, not elite players, Hall of Famers. Like in the past, and
um,
like I I I don't see that for a couple of recent teams now.
but that because Canada's starting to go that route of having, they're not just taking the best players,
Yeah,
right? Like if they're debating between, you know, uh, for a guy that did make the team, like a Beckett Seneca and another player, they might just take the other player because they're like, hey, you know what? They're better suited to be a third line center, a third line penalty kill forward for us, or something like that, right? So they're just not taking the best team that they can take,
yeah,
which I think
and
is unfair to some of these other guys that I think definitely should be on the team. It's a great, opportunity for some of these other guys because like the World Juniors can totally change your hockey, your career for you, for
absolutely.
some of these guys. But again, I think in this tournament, especially when other teams take their best players, why are you not doing the same? Right? You
I mean, so
we went
Canada
out
did it
round one of the
all the time in
playoffs
the
last year.
past, and we dominated the juniors.
Yeah.
Like, good luck to any idiot trying to beat us when we were doing that. Now we're big braining it. Oh, this guy he's got a lot of hits. Let's bring him in. Yeah, I guess we'll just not bring Beckett Seneca.
Yeah.
Like Beckett Seneca, who is 6'3" as well. He would probably be one of the biggest guys on your team. So like, it's not like he can't play down lower in that role. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
I
it's
don't I
weird.
don't get
I
it.
don't like it.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of it either. I think Canada's still got a solid team. Um, but I think the fact that you have Gavin McKenna, I think you actually need to utilize him properly.
Yeah,
Like if I think he's got a very good chance to be the MVP of this tournament. Like he is that good, but you need to give him the opportunity for that. And fourth line isn't gonna cut it. But hey, what do we know, right?
yeah. Yeah, it's just weird. I just don't know how are they having practices or like getting the team together in any capacity and not seeing, hey, this guy kicks so much ass. Let's put him out there more. Like,
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm right there with you.
it's weird. Uh, but moving on from that, is that about all we got for this episode? There wasn't really a ton of specific news throughout the week.
Yeah, no. For me, I believe that is. Oh, you know what? I do. Let me
Oh,
find
what
it
you
here
got?
quickly. It wasn't a big thing on the news, which I was shocked by because I figured this would be something that would catch a lot of attention, but somehow it didn't. I just want to find it here just to confirm that I got the full scoop. Okay. Um, let's kind of break this situation down. What's one of your favorite movies of all time?
Oh, oh my God, what a loaded question.
Wrong. I'll tell you. It's Benchwarmers.
Oh, I was gonna answer Kung Fu Panda.
Will you be wrong? Your favorite movie is Benchwarmers. For those who haven't seen Benchwarmers, fully go watch it. Great movie. What is one of the most iconic scenes from that movie?
When Richie kicks the kid in the face and then gets the home run.
Okay, what's the other most iconic moment? The one that's that became one of the biggest memes around the world, actually.
I'm 12.
I'm 12. There you go. Over
Nice.
in France, we had a real life version of that. A 28-year-old was charged with fraud, child endangerment, and assault after he disguised himself as a 15-year-old and played
No.
3 games in a U16 hockey tournament. He went unnoticed in the first 2 games, but he was found out in the third game when he laid a massive open ice hit on a 15-year-old. Dude is
Oh my
28,
God.
and he
Dude.
found a way to trick everyone into letting him play in this tournament.
And this idiot couldn't just go out there and dominate. He had to go in and dummy some literal child. Oh man. Dude, I hope the parents go after this guy hard.
Yeah.
That's brutal, man.
And I'm surprised that there's not more news about it. Like, it was very hard to find kind of the full story about it, but like there's a video of the
I had
incident,
not heard
there's
about
a
this at all.
mugshot, like it's so that's happening over in France right now. A 28-year-old playing in a U16 hockey tournament.
All I can imagine him
is
as
wild.
is the guy from the Benchwarmers doing that too. Like, he's like sitting there on the bench, everyone's drinking their water. He like takes his swig of tequila and gets out there and takes a massive
Smashes the bottle on the bench. He's like, I'm ready. Throws up on the ice after the hit. So that's going over on that's happening over in France. So I just wanted to bring light to that. And it sounds like the kid was okay. It was a massive hit, but hey, you know what? Us hockey players, we've all taken big hits and gotten up from it. I think that says more about maybe how much of a pussy the 28-year-old is, that he couldn't rock a kid and injure him. That's that much younger, 13 years younger than him. He couldn't even do that much damage to him.
Yeah.
But that's the end of this one. We're wrapping it up here.
Yeah, I think that's all we got for this one.
All right. Well, that wraps up everything and anything going on in this episode, talking about the Cam Fowler trade, what's going on over in Boston with Oliver Wahlstrom, all the news surrounding Buffalo, how they can turn shit around. Yeah. If you guys want to talk hockey, you know where to do so. Down in the description, all of the links to our socials are on there. The YouTube will now be on there, so you can feel free if you want to go over and listen on the YouTube, if you want to throw a like, if you want to subscribe to that. And if you want to throw anything in the comments on any episodes, we will be responding to every comment as we do across all of our platforms. Braden, as always, final thoughts.
Despite how much we've said about the losing of the Sabres, they are not last in the league. Last in the league is a joint tie between the Blackhawks and the Predators.
Oh, you have no idea how happy I am that we just avoided Nashville at this point. I'm done with them. Sick of them.
They're both tied for points. If you want to draw a line on who would be lower, though, the Blackhawks have 2 more regulation wins and a better plus-minus.
Oh, they're so much better than Nashville.
Dude, the Preds are so bad.
Preds are ass.
God. Get us out of here. Get us out of here before we start talking about the Predators.
We're not going down that rabbit hole because, hey, you know what? Nashville doesn't want to do anything to turn the team around, so why should we try and come up with reasons for how the team can turn themselves around? We've listed off every possible option for them, and they haven't listened. So that will wrap up everything for this episode. Hope you guys all enjoyed, and we'll see you guys out on the ice on Friday.